Hello, this is Tom Buttke. I'm here with another session of Heroes from Home. And our guest today is Pastor Mark Krueger. And welcome, Mark.
Good to be here, Tom.
This is all about military veterans. And we'll start, first of all, Pastor Mark, would you tell us about your family, first of all?
Absolutely. I have a lovely wife, Sandy. Both of us are from Sheboygan. Sandy and I have been married 52 years. We have been blessed with two children, a son, Aaron. He's married to Mindy, and they have two children, and they live in Eau Claire. Aaron happens to be working in graphic arts. His medium is human flesh. Yeah, which was a surprise to Sandy and I. He's a tattoo artist, and he does very well. And then we have a daughter, Sarah, and she's married to Matt. And Sarah works as an assistant in the Marshfield Library, and Matt is in marketing with Nelson Jameson. We are blessed to have Matt and Sarah here in Marshfield, and then Aaron and Mindy are in Eau Claire, so they're close. And both Sandy and I hail from a little town called Sheboygan, Wisconsin. Sheboygan is noted for 4 C's. I don't know if you've heard of that.
No.
Cheese, churches, children, and chairs. At one time, Sheboygan had 4 or 5 furniture manufacturers. So that's a little bit about Pastor Mark.
That's a little bit of history about Sheboygan I didn't know. So
There
thank
you go.
you for that.
You'd think beer and brats would be a
Well,
part of that.
that
but
was gonna
no.
be- that was
Yeah,
gonna be,
They didn't make the C's, so.
What year did you enter the service?
I was in Jasper, Minnesota, when one of our members, a National Guard member, approached me about being a chaplain. And that was 1980. And I applied at our local recruiter in Pipestone, which was the county seat. And they were overstaffed in chaplain. And I thought, well, I applied. You have my application. I forgot about it. I got to Kohler in 1981. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, I got a call from our local recruiter asking me if I was still interested in the chaplaincy. Quite honestly, I had forgotten about it. My father was a veteran, so there was a real strong connection for me to serve God and country. He was in Germany for 6 months, and I said, now that you've called, I'm old. I said, I'm 36. Well, he says, we can still take you. You're right at the cutoff line. I said, well, gee, thanks. So I passed my physical, and I was commissioned in 1986 as a first lieutenant in the Army National Guard.
Okay. I know you want to enlighten the people. I think they all know that you're a minister, retired,
Right.
somewhat retired now, but
Somewhat
you want to
retired.
expand on that, please?
Yes, I was ordained into the holy ministry in 1976. My first church was in Jasper, Minnesota. We were there 6 years, and then in 1981, we came to Kohler, Wisconsin, and I was there as a sole pastor until 1987, at which time I had 3 calls. I had a call to Messiah in St. Louis, and I had a call to Marshfield, Christ Lutheran, and surprisingly, all within 20 minutes, Tom, I had a call from a 2-star general in the Pentagon. Now, I thought this was one of my classmates playing a trick on me.
It's very possible.
Very old Mark, a 2-star general calling out of the blue. He said, you're the kind of chaplain we want full time. And I went, yeah, right, okay. And I said, and what's the bonus for me? Oh, he said, there's no bonus, but he says, I've got your 201 file in front of me. And all of a sudden, I began to wonder how one of my classmates would know what a 201 file was. So then I got serious, and he said, I am serious. And he said, I'm going to give you 24 hours. I want a positive decision tomorrow morning. Well, I had my secretary return the call because I was too chicken to face him. And then I was led to accept the call to Christ Lutheran. And we had a wonderful ministry at Christ Lutheran for 25 years. We retired in 2012. So I've been retired 10 years.
And what are you doing now in retirement?
Am busier than I should be. My wife tells me that all the time. I serve vacant congregations as they need me, and I'm helping out at Emmanuel Lutheran in Hewitt, Wisconsin. And then I do some woodworking, and I do a little stained glass just to keep me out of mischief.
Boy, I tell the viewers here, I've seen, we bought some of his stained glass. He's one of the best out there. So
Well, thank you.
Very good. Mark, tell us a little bit about being a chaplain in the service. I know you probably can't say everything of what happened there, but just enlighten us a little bit, if you would, please.
It was a wonderful ministry. I had to go through 8 weeks of basic training, and for a 36-year-old, I had a hard time keeping up with these young bucks. I was 8 weeks in Fort Monmouth, New Jersey, was the chaplain school. Then we spent about 4 weeks in the field at luscious Fort Dix, New Jersey. The Army has no sense of humor when it comes to camping, by the way. I've never camped since then. And then I came back and I served a unit in Milwaukee. I was with the 32nd Division as a battalion chaplain. And then I got kind of tired of driving from Kohler to Milwaukee once or twice a month. So I applied to be a chaplain in the Army Reserve in the Sheboygan unit, which was a field artillery unit. And I served with Army vets that were mostly Vietnam vets, 2 or 3 tours in Vietnam, and it was an enlightening experience. It's like a church within a church. You minister to these troops who have families and who many times have churches on their own. But when we're together drilling for a week or 2 weeks during the summer, that became my church. You got to know them. You got to be ingrained with them and their families. I did weddings for them. I did baptisms for them, even 1 or 2 funerals. It was just a wonderful experience, very much appreciated. Although I must say, after my unit in Sheboygan let me go and I came to Marshfield by transfer, I was assigned to the 13th evac. That was a little bit different story. In Sheboygan, I had a commander that really supported chaplains. Okay, my chapel services were on Sunday at 0100 or 1300 in the afternoon as military time. I never did get that straight, you know. Why can't they just do it like everybody else does?
I think Radar O'Reilly on MASH used to wonder about that.
Yeah,
too,
well, we have something.
No, I think it was actually McLean Stevenson
Could
never
be.
got that.
He never got it right either.
Yeah.
So then I'm in good company.
Yes.
But we'd have chapel services, and in Sheboygan, the commander would say, okay, chapel at 1300 hours, all of those you not going to chapel will have big KP duty. So I had a full chapel. It was good.
Whatever
it
it takes.
Whatever it takes. Well, when I got to Marshfield, the commander wasn't so supportive of the chaplains. And it was difficult. So I had 6 good years in the National Guard and then a couple of years in the Reserve. But it's a wonderful ministry.
You must have helped a lot of people with struggles. You alluded to that a little bit, you know,
Yeah.
having families at home, babies, you know, wives, you know, and things. So I'm sure.
A lot of counseling.
Yes.
I was on the bubble to go to Desert Storm, and there was another Army's chaplain, Larry Moody, who was the same rank as I was, and he had just a couple more weeks seniority. So he got the call to go. And during that time, I was ready. My duffel bag was packed, and we had made arrangements with our church for a fill-in, and I was ready to go at a moment's notice. And when I was on duty, I had a bunch of conscientious objectors that came in and talked to me. And it's funny, you know, because we're trained to do what we're trained to do. But when the bubble goes up like that, then it gets serious. Mm-hmm. A lot of counseling, a lot of marital counseling. Right. Challenging at times, but still rewarding. So rewarding.
I think, and you could explain this a little bit, but I don't think the average person, and I'm not a military guy, my father was, but people don't realize what it's all about.
No.
When you go, especially go overseas and you're away from your loved ones for a while.
It's a tremendous sacrifice. I was just thinking about that driving over here. Sandy really didn't appreciate my time in the military because we had 2 young children. When I did my 8 weeks of basic training, she was mother, father, caregiver, breadwinner, chief cook and bottle washer, and I give her credit for carrying the ball those 8 weeks. And then the 2 weeks during summer when we were at Camp McCoy or Fort Sam Houston or wherever the Army decided to fly us, she was on her own. And it's, you take those things for granted. And I can't imagine what our veterans that had served 2 or 3 tours in Iraq, Afghanistan, the burden that they must have carried, just being away from their loved ones like that. I give them a tremendous amount of credit. I do.
I think there's more of it now, but were there ladies also in the service?
Oh, quite a few.
Quite a few.
In our medical unit, we had a lot of nurses and surgical techs. So we had a good mixture of male and female. And like I said, ministering to them was an honor. And I'm so glad I had the opportunity to do that.
I just wanted to make sure on that it's not just for men.
Oh, no.
In the service,
No.
there's ladies that sacrifice too.
Yeah.
Mark, you got some things you want to show us here.
I do, and I don't know how many of these chaplain kits are out there floating around. I was issued this in my first couple of months of chaplain's duty, and then I had to take this out to Fort Monmouth, New Jersey. This was a standard chaplain kit. It's ecumenical, so it can be used by Catholics, Lutherans, Pentecostals, Reformed, you name it. And this is what I would take out to the field for chapel services. Now, not every chapel service I did was with Holy Communion, but I was set up to do that. So in the chaplain's kit, of course, you had a little prayer stand, which I very seldom used because it's kind of small, but it had a bookmark, and that was weighted so that the wind couldn't blow your book pages around. It didn't always work. Okay. Then came with a cross, and if you didn't want the IHS, the Italian for Jesus Christ Savior, you could turn it around and make it ecumenical. We also had a little ciborium for the wafers when soldiers would want Holy Communion. And then we also had the common cup. Now, this was before the individual cups, you see. So we had the common cup for those that didn't bind a few germs, although the wine would kill germs. And then for those that were a little more skittish, we had what they called an intincture edition, and that was filled with wine, and then they would take their wafer and they would dip that so that they wouldn't have any contact with anybody else's. So, and this, we always had wonderful chaplain assistants. I can remember one time we were at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and it was hot. And I had a chaplain's assistant, and they were kind of our drivers and also our bodyguards. We weren't allowed to carry weapons because we were non-combative, but our chaplain's assistants were our protection. And I had a wonderful young man, and we drove around and visited the troops. And that afternoon, we had scheduled a communion service for the Lutheran type soldiers. And there was a stone wall out in the middle of the field that had a beautiful oak tree in the shade, and it was hot. It was humid. And I said to my chaplain's assistant, I said, this is where we're going to set up communion, in the shade, and I can use that wall kind of as a backdrop, and you bring the card table and we'll set up communion there. So I had lunch and I came back, he picked me up. Where does he set up? In the open.
In the heat.
In the sun, not even close to the wall, to that wall or to the oak tree. And I said, didn't you hear me? I said, did I not give you an order? Chaplains, had rank, but nobody ever paid attention to us, all right? We were kind of out there. And he said, but sir. I said, we got to move this. No, come over here. And he led me over to that stone wall, and there were about 50 rattlesnakes.
Oh, no.
Curled up in those stones, absorbing the heat. And I said, good call. Good call, I said.
He knew what he was doing.
He knew what he was doing, and he probably saved this chaplain's bacon by doing that.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was, I never saw combat, but that was close to getting
I would say.
Getting wounded, yeah. So
remember what kind of snakes they were?
Rattlesnakes.
Rattles.
Because as I got close, you could
and
hear
what was
Those rattles.
How big?
They were big. I didn't get too close, but trust me, there's something that I didn't want to mess with. Yeah.
What else do you have in your kit
Well,
there?
I've got what they call windproof candles, but untested. Yeah, windproof candles, and then I would carry either wine or grape juice in bottles. Some soldiers didn't want the alcoholic beverage, so yeah. So this was something I carried with me all the time, and then of course for the distribution of wafers, we had a patent, and I've used this also in my services here in the States when I did shut-ins at nursing homes. So it worked out very
awesome.
well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is a little keepsake that I have. I was telling you earlier that we had a chaplain in chaplain school in Fort Monmouth who had been in Vietnam. And they told us when we were issued this, take good care of it because you won't get another one unless it's destroyed in combat. So I'm hoping I didn't have to apply for a new one. But this chaplain spoke to us, and he had a communion kit. He was setting it up in the jungles of Vietnam. A North Vietnamese had thrown a hand grenade into his setting, and he happened to just throw the communion kit on the hand grenade, and everybody ran, and it saved their life. Wow. Well, he did get a new communion kit, but his shattered one was on display.
He earned it.
He earned it. That's right.
Mark, you talked about some of your fondest memories in the service. Do you have any other memories that you can think of that really stick out?
Yeah, just the closeness. In fact, when I was here in Marshfield, I got to do a baptism of one of the soldiers. In fact, we just had a funeral not that long ago, and this young man was there. And I had forgotten that I had baptized him, but that was 32 years ago. And I said, now I really feel old. But yeah, and you know, those friendships and those relationships carry on.
Do you see any of your comrades?
Very seldom.
Very seldom.
Very seldom.
You know, and that's sort of sad. That's why I'm really happy about the honor flight.
Yes.
Did you go on that, by the way?
No, I don't think I would be eligible because I was in 6 years reserve and then 2 years IRR. I never really got enough points to earn that honor. So,
did you, as a minister in Marshfield and Sheboygan, wherever, did you ever have to counsel veterans? You know, because I know a lot of veterans don't like to talk about certain things. Were you ever involved with that type of thing?
Many times, soldiers with PTSD would come in, and they would share their stories, and knowing that I was a chaplain, but I was non-combative, and I never saw combat, but at least I could listen. And my dad used to tell me stories of when he was in Germany during the end of the war, and some of the things that he went through. So, you know, you have a little flavor of what, having not been there, of course, you don't know, but just to listen and have them share their stories, and there was a connection there, because they knew I was ex-military.
And that's what, on the honor flight, from what I hear from, they tend to open up a little bit more when they see that. And they just love when they go through all that in Washington, D.C. and see all this kind of stuff. Yeah. So it's good. You know, we should be honoring vets all the time. Yes. I don't believe we should be honoring just on Veterans Day or Memorial Day, but please say thank you to a vet as many times as you can. They've all earned it.
You bet. I go out of my way when I see somebody that has a veteran's hat on, you know, military type hat. I thank them for their service, and they are very appreciative. That's something we really can't take for granted, because these men and women literally put their life on the line, and they sacrifice their family and their friends so we have the freedoms that we have.
Absolutely. I talked last night, I'm on a committee with Wood County, and one of the participants is Rock Larson, the Veterans Service Officer at Wisconsin Rapids. And I just want to mention two vets, because Mr. Larson told us some of the things, or a lot of the things that vets are eligible for. And I said, how do people find out about that? And with the media now, there's so many avenues now with the media that when you have a lot of them, you don't have any, some say. Yeah, yeah. And but I just want to tell veterans, and Mark, you can jump in anytime, If you ever have any questions about any services or anything, contact Rock Larson, excuse me, with in the Wood County Courthouse.
That's right. And I run into so many veterans that don't realize the opportunities and the benefits that are out there, and that's a good point. We have a veterans officer that deals with this on a daily basis, and any questions, call him or call the office.
They had just a big list of benefits that people can get, and I'm worried that a lot of veterans either don't want to, some feel that they don't deserve it, which I don't agree with. I think they all deserve it.
That's right.
But tell us about we talked about positives. What were some of the negatives when you were as a chaplain?
Yeah, just being away from family, the guilt of I should be there, being away from our parishes, because that 8 to 10 weeks I was gone in Kohler, you're leaving your church family, and quite a few people understood why I was doing that. There are always a few that have some animosity. You know, we're paying you to be our pastor. You don't need to be a chaplain. Why are you doing this? So, yeah, those were some of the negatives. Other than that, I mean, very, very positive. Appreciated.
But I have to commend you and others for taking that. You were helping a lot of people that really needed help.
We tried.
It's a totally different circumstance than just, and I don't say that negatively, just a congregation.
Right.
That was probably more important at that time.
Right, and this was a specialized ministry. And my dad, having been a veteran, I felt a certain obligation to continue. He was in the Army, and like I said, 2 years, and served 6 months in Germany. Ironically, he had done his training at Fort Sill, where I did some summer training in Oklahoma. Probably one of the more fascinating opportunities I had was the 2 weeks we were at Fort Sam Houston in San Antonio. I was an on-call chaplain in their ER, and it opens your eyes to really what's going on in the world. The stabbings, the shootings. One of the best positives that I've ever had was I get called upon a lot to do veteran funerals. We had a gentleman whose DNA was finally identified he had fought overseas. In fact, they had found his remains in Japan, and they identified him, and he was buried, and I was asked to do the committal for this gentleman. What an honor.
Yeah,
what an honor to do that.
I'm going to open it up to you, Mark. Anything you want to say, encouraging people in the military, or it's open, the floor is open?
Well, you know, as an ex-chaplain, I take my hat off to all of our military personnel. Like you said, Tom, we can't thank you enough for the sacrifice that you do. And it really isn't like MASH on TV, you know. Well, some parts were, but most of it was serious. And now that I have the opportunity, again, I want to thank my family for standing by me. I know it was a hardship for Sandy and for our kids because they missed their dad. Right. But I think in the long run, they appreciate everything that we did. Also, I want to say a special thank you to you. You and your family and loved ones did a wonderful job on that wall of honor in the community center. And I urge our community, if you haven't yet seen that, by all means, go there. What a wonderful tribute to all of those veterans in our area.
And I have to thank you. You talked at that event.
It was an honor to be asked.
And you even got a little emotional,
I did as
well on that. And it is, Stratford Signs did a wonderful job on that wall, and unfortunately we're getting more and more veterans all the time, but it's all about honoring vets. So.
And you did a wonderful job, and they should be honored. They should not be forgotten. Along with the honor flights, that wall of honor is just wonderful tribute. And I've talked to so many people who don't know it's there or who haven't visited it yet, and I always encourage them to do so.
The only negative with that wall is the fact that we have to Hillside Cemetery, Brooklawn Cemetery, and McMillan Memorial. Brooklawn, there was a lot of Marshfield people when they first started that cemetery, that veterans were buried out there. We had to draw a line. And that's one of my struggles with that. People say, well, my loved one's buried in Fond du Lac or Hewitt even.
Yeah.
And, you know, the local ones, I guess we're open to it, but it takes money. And people don't realize, I think we've got over 2,600 deceased vets on that wall now. And we're expanding. We got a second wall, and we'll continue. So hopefully in the future that we can do more and more. So it's
much appreciated. And again, if you have some extra cash, I know where Tom can use it.
People have been wonderful on that, bringing cash to make it happen, because I didn't know, I wanted to get it done so bad, and I had no idea people would be so supportive. But I believe that whole wall, the first wall, cost us $25,000.
Wow.
So it's not cheap. So like you said, Pastor Mark, if people would be willing to give, that's very helpful. We have to honor our vets. And I don't care what branch they were in or whatever. Everybody had a job to do, and they sacrificed a lot.
Very good.
In the future now, we will keep doing this. I'll be interviewing more vets, and this can be seen on Facebook and YouTube. And I think we're still going to have Laverne Neve on yet this week, and I believe this next month. Then we'll have Pastor Mark on, and we'll just keep going. I've got a list of veterans that I'm going to interview. So, anything else you want to say, Mark?
No, thank you for asking me to be a small part of this, Tom. It's just an honor to represent our veterans, but also to represent our military chaplains. When I was honorably discharged in 1992, we were just beginning to see a broader range of chaplains. We were beginning to see Muslim chaplains, Buddhist chaplains. When I was in, we had Jewish chaplains, and what was really neat about the chaplaincy is when we were at basic training, it didn't matter what color we were, what religion we were, what our beliefs were. We were all in this together, and we all helped one another out. And I'll never forget that we had a Catholic priest that was probably in his 70s, and he was going through basic training, and he was assigned to our platoon, and our drill sergeant said, "You all have to help one another out. If you don't all pass the requirements, you have to do it over." Well, a bunch of us had to help this Catholic priest. He was blind in one eye, but they were so short a Catholic priest, he wanted to get through this. So we helped him through the obstacle course. I don't know how many times we picked him out of the water, but we all were in this together, and we got him through, and we passed. But I think that's the story of life, all pulling together. We're all in this together.
And I do have to mention, I know, Mark, you were probably the one that got prayers at Common Council meetings for years. And talk about that. You know, you talk about the different religions. We had every type of religion. And, you know, if you chose not to believe in that particular, you're going to respect people.
That's right.
You know, but that was awesome. What he did was...
that was an honor to do that. And what a wonderful way to begin a council meeting. The other thing I really enjoyed in Marshfield was the Dairy Fest round barn service.
Yes.
Oh, we had fun doing that, and we raised thousands and thousands of dollars for the Children's Miracle Network.
Awesome.
Yeah, what a fitting way to end a Dairy Fest weekend.
Sometimes on the Common Council, now that I'm not on it anymore, I think you should have a prayer every hour or something. You know?
Well, I'm praying at home.
There you go. All right. Thank you, Mark.
Oh,
thank you for your
Tom.
service, and
You're
thank all
welcome.
veterans out there for your service.
Amen.